I hope everybody enjoyed this fantastic conference. I get this is the last the last session of the day, so I appreciate everybody being here. You guys are the tough ones, sticking it through to the last event. So anyway, today I'm going to talk about Facts on Fire 2.0. As some of you may know, I have a website up right now that has free materials on it, and we're going to release a new set of materials in August. And so I'm going to prepare you guys for what's upcoming. And I appreciate you guys attending. So the session agenda, I'm going to go ahead and just introduce these materials and how to use them for tiered supports. And what you'll find in here is a scope and sequence of the critical skills to support basic computation. And also, so I'm going to run through what those skills are, and then we're going to talk about the mastery criteria. And as you're going to see today, I've really worked hard to try and simplify all of this stuff for people. Yesterday was a little complicated with the early numeracy. I was having technical difficulties, so the videos are all up. They're going to be working today. And today we're not going to go over the early numeracy skills. We will just be talking about basic computation skills, and then also I have a variety of extensions for after they've learned their skills, how we're going to use those in future ways. And so Facts on Fire, the whole point of it was designed to automatize foundational skills. And ultimately, it's here to supplement the core curriculum. And so, this isn't a do-it-all curriculum. This is a supplement. As you'll see in the scope and sequence, there's typically like 3 to 6 really primary critical skills that are kind of computation based, that if kids can have those basic skills when teachers are going through curricula that have lots of standards and lots of different things, if students have these kind of computation skills automatized, and it just helps them teach students the conceptual meaning behind it, procedures of how to combine and use it. And so it's really about providing students with access to the core curriculum. So teachers are more effective in their lessons, students get more, and everybody are happy. It targets all 4 operations and multi-digit procedures, and these are free. They will always be free. And it's a standard protocol intervention program. And the 2.0 materials, we're designing those that these can be used pretty easily in a tiered system. And I'll talk a little bit about that today. To get to the website, go to www.factsonfire.com. And so the new one, the old mind, people would have to download everything, make packets. You would assess kids every week to every 2 weeks, and you would have it fully differentiated across your kids. And there was a lot of really great things about that, but also it was a heavy lift for teachers, right? Because they were assessing, and then they had to get print orders, and somebody had to print it, which was probably the teacher. And so I think, so what I tried to do at the Mind 2.0 is to make things more of a standard program. And so now students will receive a 30 to 45 lesson workbook, where you guys will print out those sheets. And those are 74 pages for sums to 6, sums to 10, and subtraction from 10, because there's fewer items. And then 114 pages for sums to 18. And so right here, for example, is one of the workbooks I have for a grant upcoming. And so you'll see kind of the thickness of it. And again, so this would be a 30 lesson workbook. So it would take 30 days or 6 weeks. This sums to 18, and this would be 45 lessons. And so this would take 45 days, 45 lessons. So this would take 9 weeks. Okay. And so every kid would go through this. They would do the same lessons every day. If you need to differentiate for tiered supports, it'll have that capability if you have one-to-one tablets. But anyway, I just want to kind of give people a feel for what it's going to look like. And the reason why I did that is because 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, teachers would call me and they'd be like, there's all these kids and they're like on sums to 10 or sums to 18 or subtraction from 10. And like, in the core, we're working on multiplication. Can I move them to multiplication? And so if you had the mind and you did it tier 1.5 and they got everything in kindergarten and in first and in second and third grade, this would all make sense. But it's like with these materials, people were taking them and using them in their third grade classroom. And so I wanted to give the option, if you want to assess kids and put them in individual units and have them on individual tablets, you can still do that to be fully differentiable. But I think probably what would work best, especially in a tier 1.5, is you yoke it to the curriculum and then you'll put kids, kind of in those skills. And I've done things with the sets to where, most kids, pretty much all kids should be able to pick things up and be successful. So, and also what it looks like is the old school was just, they had paper, they were timed and they practiced. Now teachers are going to access a PowerPoint slide deck. So they'll go to the slide deck, tell the kids, open up your packet to lesson 1. They'll get the slide deck for lesson 1. They'll press play. Literally, the deck will provide instructions, provide stimulus, provide timing, and so the teacher literally can just sit back and pin their ears back, circulate the room, make sure kids are on task, working hard, fist bumps, high fives, feedback, and so it really frees the teacher, hopefully not to be dealing with all of the paper pushing, but really in the timing, but get to supporting those students. K1 students, K1 teachers will lead students to chorally respond. And so I talked about this in yesterday's presentation. I had a great video by Laura Stam, who is I guess a celebrity on X. She's a teacher that posts stuff and just works her tail off to help teachers. And she was kind enough to take these materials and make some videos for me. And so, a big shout out to her. Grades 1 through 5, kids will write the answer. And so if we think about it, K1, we can go ahead and lead these at carpet time on the smart board signal choral responding. Grades 1 through 5, kids can be at their desks and the slide decks will go ahead and transfer them through the daily activities. There's 3 primary activities. There's tape problems with small sets. That takes about 3 to 4 minutes a day. And then there's explicit timing with goal setting and reward to support daily retrieval. Now, the reward is done once a week. And so, but basically what we're trying to do here is, again, about a 5-minute activity every day, brief, lots of opportunities to respond. And then there's what's called a warming up activity. And so the tape problems with explicit timing will be the first 10 lessons. And then the next 5 lessons will be the warming up activity. And this is just where we do time practice. And so if we think about it this way, there's going to be 3 sets of problems. Each one, like for sums to 10, there's 2 sets of problems. So you're going to have 10 lessons with the tape problems and explicit timing, so that you're focusing on cued responding, and then you're releasing that, and the kid is doing independent retrieval practice for a minute. And then after the 10th lesson, 11 through 15, now it's just all timed retrieval practice. And then lesson 16 through 25, we'll go back to a new set of problems and introduce those, and it repeats itself. And so I'll explain this and show this a little through the through the course of the presentation. Okay, so this is kind of a summary of that first piece with the tape problems. So with tape problems, this is what the worksheet looks like. And what you'll see here, there's 4 items per day. Okay, and so the first 4, we basically introduce the sets, and we do it just like a flashcard. So in this case, right, it'll be 3 plus 3 is 6. 3 plus 3 is, it provides a delay, and then the kid's going to respond just like you would with a flashcard. The reason why this is built in is because if there is a student or 2 that cannot accurately respond, we just don't want to kind of start them off with the tape problems. And so they'll get that kind of practice and introduced that. And then when we go to tape problems, so that'll be the first 4. And then the tape problems, it just paces itself 9 plus 8, 2-second delay, 17, and the kid tries to beat the tape. If they can't beat the tape, they can listen to the immediate feedback, and it will and they can write that in. The tape problems as of now is on the website. It is, but it's not with the slide deck. So the audio files and everything for tape problems, but it's with 12 items, is on the intervention resources page of the Mind 1. The Mind 2, again, all of this will be in the slide deck, as you'll see in a little bit. And so you guys as teachers, literally, you're going to have to be, here's the slide deck, and the kids are going to have the worksheets. You're going to press play. That's it, right? So I'm really trying to get these things simplified. And then here is the Facts on Fire. This is why the program's called Facts on Fire. It was, Oklahoma City. We're doing good in the finals right now. This was done off of NBA Jam. I'm old enough. I used to go to arcades, and so it would play basketball. And if you hit 3 shots in a row, the net would catch on fire, and you just loved getting that. And so, but anyway, what you'll see here is this is structured with the tape problems. Then we do the independent practice. And so you'll see here, this is 4 items, and these 4 items are embedded in these 6. And so the kids literally are just repeating over and over these small sets. Okay, and this is set A, and then as sets B and C continue, they actually get to be larger. And so we're doing massed practice, but then we're also doing interleaved practice, and this is all built into the curricular structure of the program. Excuse me. So again, starts with small target sets. This is cued practice with immediate feedback. Then it systematically folds in new problems. And so over the 10 lesson period, it will either incorporate all 8 problems of the set or 12 problems of the set. And then when we go to lessons 11 through 15, it has an interleaved review of the previous problems. And so the time practice includes those problems across the sets. And so like if you do a fluency practice program and you're not using small sets, or you're using small sets and then you're going to new sets and leaving the old ones behind, you're going to get a lot of learning decay. And then the interference actually, is a hurdle that kids have to go through. And so again, the Mind materials are created to start small and just to snowball up bigger and bigger and bigger. And so like those Fact on Fire probes, they start like in the sums to 10, they'll start with 4 items and go 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, and the 12 items go 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36. Look at my skip counting ability there. And so again, by the end of that unit in 9 weeks, kids will have all 36 problems and be able to do them in any order. But on a daily basis in those tape problems lessons, they're only working with 4 items so they can build automaticity in those few items, and they're systematically being kind of incorporated with the others so that students can independently respond. All right. And so noticeable gain should appear for most kids. And a common question I get is why don't you break these down by like 2s and 5s and 3s? The goal of this program is automaticity of fact, not strategy. And so what I would say is that in your core curriculum, you're often going to, it's to teach accurate responding, you're going to have to put things in small sets. For example, I do it with tape problems. I think, most curricula will do it by 2s or by doubles or whatever that may be. And that's a great thing for accuracy. But remember, the mind is supposed to supplement the core. And so it's expected that kids have already been taught. They can probably accurately respond. They can conceptually tell you, why they're doing multiplication or addition or whatever. This is literally to provide the practice so they can build the automaticity. The tape problems piece is put in there. If you do, and you will, we all have them, right? You're going to have those, 4 kids, 6 kids, whatever, that still kind of struggle with accuracy a little bit. Taped problems is empirically validated to increase accurate and fluent responding. And I personally have published a study with she was a third grade girl, intellectually disabled with a with IQ of 55, and we went ahead and used sets of 4, and that worked for her. And so again, not all students will respond, and some may need larger doses and whatnot. But again, the goal is for this to work for a majority of the students. Okay, so problem sets. Here are your problem sets. And so if we think about, when I talked about 4 items, so it basically, like lesson 1, we'll do sums to 18 here. Lesson 1 would be 3 plus 3, 9 plus 8, 5 plus 2, 9 plus 6. And then obviously, that's for that day. And then, they would go ahead and then take the 3 plus 3 out. And then it would be basically 2 through 5, then 3 through 6, then 4 through 7, and so forth. So you're constantly, like if you think about incremental rehearsal and you think about folding in knowns and unknowns, this is kind of a controlled flow list. And then obviously with the Facts on Fire, things that aren't being done on tape problems are still going to be visited on a daily basis. And those on the tape problems will be visited daily on the Facts on Fire. So we're not leaving those problems behind. So anyway, that's how the problem structure and the curriculum is put together. And again, teachers need to not care about this. I spend a lot of time thinking about, like balancing how many 2s, like is the 2, for example, in front, is it are the first in order, second in order? And so I'm trying to keep, separate stimulus. So, we're not putting like things together. So you're probably not going to see 5 plus 2 and 5 plus 3 by each other because it increases confusion. And so anyway, there's been a lot of work for curriculum design here. It's not something teachers need to worry about. That's what I do, and I'm taking care of that. I just wanted everybody to know that I'm not just randomizing and throwing problems together. Okay, so the scope and sequence. Each grade needs a critical scope and sequence. Anyone that ever has heard me talk, I think this is the #1 biggest problem in math education, is that we teach way too much, way too fast, and that we're really doing our kids a disservice by not kind of just saying, here are the things that are really important. And not only do you need to know how to do them accurately, but you just need to know them with automaticity. And so I talked about kindergarten and first grade yesterday, but second grade through fourth grade, it's addition to 10, fact families with close, which I call extensions, and I'll talk about that a little bit. But then subtraction, it's just your basic big 4. There's some application pieces with that, and then it's multi-digit. And so that's basically, again, what Facts on Fire is. It's not a curriculum, it's a supplement to help those computation skills. And this is important for teachers to have these conversations. The second grade needs to talk to the first grade, and the first grade to the kindergartners. Vertical alignment, what skills you teach, when you teach them, and how those relate to what's being introduced in your core curriculum is important. This is me sitting in my office saying, this is what I think, how most, when most skills are taught and expected. Your curriculum and your context may be different. And so by all means, sit down on a school by school basis and just think about and assign these to when it works best for you guys. But again, third grade, if they're sitting there and they're like, we expect kids to have their multiplication learned by the time, they enter third grade, which probably wouldn't happen, but let's say it was a fast-paced thing, then you might have to adjust these things, and then vice versa. And so that's an important kind of piece of this, the scope and sequence, and it really just identifies what needs taught and when these should be mastered. And when they're taught in the core curriculum after they've been introduced, then that's a great time for Facts on Fire to come in and basically provide the practice to make sure that those get automatized. And so then the other thing is, people always use the word, we want things mastered. Well, what does that mean? And so we also need criteria. And so this is something I got lots of questions about. I used to use digits correct per minute, but people would email me all the time, like, how do you score digits per minute, and why don't you do problems per minute? And I'm also, the mastery criteria was 40 digits for addition sums to 10, but it was 30 for subtraction. And so then people, was it 40, is it 30? People were just getting confused. So we're just going to go to a simple, if it's a basic fact, it's 30 problems per minute. That's one problem every 2 seconds. It's simple. It is obviously an expert criteria. There is research that supports, um, that I'm writing up now, where we have it, where that's kind of a minimum threshold for when you teach related skills, it's going to work. And so 30 problems per minute. And if you think about it from a digits correct per minute standpoint, sums to 18. If you do 30 problems, that's going to result over 40 digits correct. And then obviously 30 problems in subtraction will be 30 problems, right? Or 30 digits. And so anyway, now the bad news is I can't get away from digits correct per minute with multi-digit. And so, but I have those set consistently just at 20 digits correct per minute, just so it's something that, and these are just kind of base targets, but this will kind of simplify. So if you're in second grade or above, 30 problems per minute, 20 digits correct per minute on your multi-digit. Okay, so now let's get to the intervention materials. This is why we're all here, right? And so this is the drill with tape problems. And again, this is what the kid's going to be looking at in the workbook. And again, the first four they do drill and practice with, and then tape problems is with the rest. Items are interspersed with that controlled flow, which I talked about. Items 1 through 4, then item 1 is dropped. And so when I say 1 to 4, 2 to 5, 3 to 6, those are the defined problems in the probe set. If you go back to that previous slide, you can see what those sets are. And then all items are systematically reviewed. Okay, and so I'm sure this is, and so I'm so pleased that Laura made these videos for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show videos of it being done in a classroom so people can get a feel for what it looks like. And so again, so kids are seeing this. I included that this was what was supposed to play yesterday, but it didn't. This is when she is using choral responding. So we're going to do this video is choral responding with the taped problems piece. And so you'll see those first 4 items with a stimulus response feedback, so a flashcard drill to ensure accurate responding, and then you'll have the cued responding with a delay for response and feedback with the tape problems. And so lots of probably jargony words. When you see her do this, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, that's simple. And so anyway, the great Laura Stan.
Remember when we respond in the whole class. So when I point to you, you're going to respond. So let's practice. You're going to say 10 when I point to you. Ready? 10. Oh, good job. Say 15. 15. 27.
All right, so this isn't in my packet. She's just such a good teacher. She realizes that these are the things that you have to teach because this was new to her classroom. And so we're also, going to create kind of training materials for student training. And so we'll make sure that students kind of get used and understand this format. Another thing that's just really important about all this is the format's the same every day. People think that's boring, but kids absolutely love the predictability. They feel in charge and empowered. They know what's happening and they're successful, and that's an important thing. So let's get back to the expert.
1058. 1058. That's ready.
Oh, I'm sorry. And again, I'm going to redo the directions. This was me being way too wordy.
17. 7. 15. 10. 10.
Okay, so I hope that's clear to everybody what that looks like. I don't think you guys need to see a gazillion repetitions. We got some other videos that I want to make sure there's plenty of time for. So then they do the tape problems, and then they move to the facts on fire. And so this is literally your classic. I'm going to give you a minute. I want to see how many you can do. Obviously, we have this as warm, hot, on fire, nuclear. And if you notice the number of problems, there's 6 problems, 12 problems, we're at 18, 24, 30. So this is your mastery criteria right here. And then I hear, and we don't want to stop kids necessarily. If they can get all 48 problems, that's fantastic. But the old school mind, you would just kind of say, we'll move when you're mastered. Here, when you have a kid that starts at warm, every day you can ask them, how many did you get right? And did you beat yesterday's score, which we're going to talk about in a bit, but also did you move up in your rating? We want teachers to interact with the students, celebrate moving from warm to hot, have everybody working against themselves, trying to work hard each day, get better each day. I want this activity to really be a precursor for teachers to interact with their students and celebrate success. And so the students will, the other issue is teachers are like, I don't have time to score everything. Students should be accurate here. So when students do this for a minute, you'll have them count the number of problems that they get right. And then they write that, or I'm sorry, you count the number they completed. We don't want to have to put keys up in front of kids and is it right or is it wrong? And I realize you're going to miss some mistakes and things of that nature, but then that takes too much class time. And the whole point of this system is to try and be efficient. And so it leaves teachers time to teach the core curriculum, the application, the conceptual understanding. I mean, all these things that are the end goals of instruction. This is kind of what we're doing and why we're trying to do it. So if a kid got to here, for example, they literally would just say, I did 24 problems and I'm hot. Okay. And then what they would do is they literally would go, and you'll see this in the video at the end, she'll just say, go to tomorrow's and write that at the top. So they would write 24. So like when a kid comes to this, technically, if this was lesson 2, up here they would write like 24 of what they got yesterday, and then they again would try to beat that. So that's that individual goal setting component for each kid. And so again, 0 to 12 problems, the warm, hot, on fire, nuclear. And then obviously this is only 6 problems over and over and over again. It starts with 6, then moves to 12, 18, 24, 30, 36. But the first row to the first 2 to 3 rows will always be yoked to what was taught that day. And once they get past that, then they're going to interleave that practice. And so once again, these aren't random probes. Everything is set up in a very calculated way. But you'll see there's no 0s and 1s. Those should be rule governed. And reciprocals have been shown to generalize for most. And we're going to talk about that in the extensions. But if kids have 2 plus 8, they generally get 8 plus 2. All right, so let's move to the video.
Good strong voices. Ready, ready. Here we go. It is time for
A short amount of time will be given for you to make the answer. When then the answer will be found. We want all of you to say the answer with the smile.
11. 4 plus 4 is 8. 4 plus 4, 8. 6 plus 7 is 13. 6 plus 7, 13. 5 plus 6 is 11. 5 plus 6, 5 plus 6, 11. 6 plus 7, 13. 8 plus 3, 11. 8. 5 plus 6, 11. 6 plus 7,
Yeah, and again, if kids work ahead and they're getting them right, then they're just doing retrieval practice. But then this also will ensure that those low kids that are struggling, they're going to have that built in, the stimulus and the antecedent and the immediate feedback.
Begin.
Right, so this was obviously the time. So it's going to be built into the slide deck. She obviously is just doing this independently, old school.
Raise your hand if you got warm. Hands down. Raise your hand if you got hot. Hands down. Raise your hand if you got on fire. Woo! Give yourself a big round of it. Okay, raise your hand if you got nuclear. You are so right. You got nuclear. Nice job. All right, pass it down.
Yeah, what I love about that clip is he was everything, and he may have been nuclear and just been like, because I got by it. But the point is that some of these kids raise their hands for multiple things. And as a teacher, I realize that like kids are gonna lie on this kind of stuff sometimes because they want to look like they're being that they moved levels even if they didn't. But when a kid sits there and he says I'm nuclear, what that should tell the teacher is probably to pull that kid a little later and just do a spot check on them, right? And see, how they're doing. But the most important thing about this is really that the kids see that the teacher cares. Because if they know their teacher cares about this and celebrates this, they're going to be engaged and care as well. In this program, one of the biggest predictors of whether it's going to be effective or not, like if a teacher puts the slide deck up and then, let's say their administrator's making him do it and they think that this memorizing facts is just mimicry and, the old tropes that we get from certain people, and they go sit at their desks, then this is going to fail. Right, the kids, the instruction is there, the curriculum there, the curriculum structures there, but it's so important that their teacher cares, and then B, they start to get celebrated for those successes.
Good job, boys.
So that's the first 10 lessons and how that looks. Tape problems, and then facts on fire. So now we go to warming up, and if anybody has used the original Mind, facts on fire, it's just 2 minutes of daily practice. That's all this is. But this is insanely important because we're spending more time. We're not providing the child the answer anymore. Now this is all about retrieval practice. I'm sure if you guys were lucky enough to go see Dr. Riccomini, I'm sure he talked, about interleaved practice and retrieval practice. And so basically we're taking the instructional structure from supporting the student to where they can perform independently. And so again, this would be, 11 through 15 is 12 problems. Then it grows to 24 to 36. It replaces tape problems with that full retrieval practice. And so with tape problems, you only get 8 responses per minute. That's not right. I'm sorry. Well, no, it would be right. I'm sorry. You get eight responses per minute, and if it, whatever a kid's at, as far as if they're doing 25 problems per minute, they're literally getting triple the OTRs. And so, actually, tape problems. What my research has shown is that, and this is actually published. I'm always like, I'm going to publish. This one's been published. Um, this generally will not be effective if a child's below 10 digits correct per minute. So that would be about, 7 to 10 problems per minute. If But tape problems will be. If they're from like 10 to 20 digits correct per minute, explicit timing and tape problems work about the same. If you get above 20 digits correct per minute, now the kids are responding independently at such a high rate, you'd actually be wasting time doing tape problems. And so, and again, the old mind would have differentiated that. With this, I'm trying to differentiate that within the flow of a kind of a standard protocol approach. I hope everybody sees that. But anyway, that's kind of the thought process instructionally behind it. And here's a video of them doing this. No, they're losing steam on their chant a little bit.
Don't think it was too late to do your best to correct.
Kids aren't misbehaving when they're putting all their efforts into writing answers as fast as they can. There are no tears. There is no crying. I don't see anyone, breaking down with the hives from anxiety. And it is because kids are in instructional level material, and timing is being done appropriately. Just in case people have heard those rumors out there that timing kids and doing this is just mean and bad to kids. Seems like they're doing pretty good and enjoying it quite a bit.
Without talking, without talking. Oh, yeah, I did.
So another important thing is, and this will be tough at first, but the slide deck is just going to pace kids through this. And they're going to want to like talk and blah, 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 but they basically just got to learn like this is going to go like that. Right. And again, this is why everything's on the slide deck, because as as Mrs. Stam's doing here, elite classroom management keeps things rolling, keeps things transitioning.
That written in the top of the page.
All right, I want people to watch this child in the corner, because I'm not trying to sell you a utopia where everything's perfect. The child's frustrated because they didn't get as far as they wanted to get, which can be looked at as two things. So this can be, where people would talk about why timing is bad. Other people would say the competition is good as long as that competition is within the child and, they're competing with themselves. I think I talked to Laura about that child, and perhaps, I think she said that some students come in, and if they're having a bad day, you can kind of see it, and these things may happen. But again, what I would do if I would see that consistently from a child is you obviously assess them in things. And as long as they're in an instructional level, then that would be a behavioral concern you would have to take care of. But if the child is in instructional level material, having conversations about competing against yourself, wanting to get better, but also realizing there's another day to beat it, and all of those things, I think are important, because if a child gets frustrated about not doing good on instructional level material, imagine the behavioral concerns that come out if the child was trying to do and working on materials that was frustration for him. Okay, so great job with that. So post-test, so after they get done with like the 30-day or the 45 lesson thing, we go ahead and just have them do a simple pre-test or a post-test. And then literally we talk about, is the skill mastered? If so, they move to the extension packet. If a child is between like 25 and 30, then you would just, or some kids will go to the extensions. Those kids would spend like a week or two just doing the daily 2-minute practice. And let's say a kid was only at 0 to 14, so they were a non-responder. Then you would assume, since there is kind of goal setting and contingencies built in, that it's probably not an engagement issue. It's probably a dosage issue. At that point, you could go ahead and double the dose. This is designed to be done once a day. But for some kids, they may need that 2 times or maybe even 3 times a day. And that's how this kind of it gets tailored into your tiered support. Okay, so the extensions, I got 15 minutes. I think I can make it. So the goal of the Mind 2.2 extensions, the program's streamlined to support that class-wide administration, and it's focused on skills yoked to the core. To me, the 2.0 is there to ensure it's to lift all the learners to be able to access the core curriculum. What I didn't want to create was something that on average looked great, but it looked great because it really lifted the top half of the kids. Now, I want the top half of the kids to do great and to build fluency, and they will. But I don't want those data hiding the fact that this wasn't sufficient for low kids. And so lower performing students, we want to provide them with the supports and the curricular intensity so that everybody can be effective. Because for you guys to be effective with your core curriculum, the more kids that have those prerequisite skills to get what you're teaching, the better. So focused on the skills yoked. Intervention should follow the core. Extensions were designed to provide tiered supports for 4 to 6 weeks. Like I said, 2 times facts on fire intervention for kids, below that kind of 15 problems per minute threshold, and then daily retrieval practice for kids 15 to 30, and then 30 and above will get extensions. And I think the lower the grade, the more you're probably just going to move kids along with extensions. We'll kind of see this as we kind of field test. Okay, so sums to 6 and sums to 10. The extensions, one is called large and in charge, and it gets students to move from count up to count on procedures. And then we have a sibling say extension, and this is cover, copy, compare with reciprocals. And this is where a kid will literally see, I'll explain each of these to you. But then what you're going to see here is they also do the same extensions with sums to 10. And the reason why I'm doing that is because we're going to have built-in assessments. And eventually I would like to see kids counting up, not counting on, right? Or I'm sorry, I want to see them count on, yes, I want to see them count up, and I want that to generalize the sums to 10. Just like with the reciprocals, let's say a kid gets what we train them on, but then we give them a separate. So instead of 8 plus 2, when they see 2 plus 8, if they wouldn't know that, that's a problem. So that's why we do this sibling say. Usually it goes ahead and generalizes, but we need to teach kids why that's going to generalize, which would be your commutative property, right? And then we got a place value extension for sums to 10, which is 3 by 3 digit without regroupings. You teach ones, tens, hundreds, so on and so forth. And then sums to 18, fact families and closed problems. So 8 plus blank is 13, and then add up to subtract. So using these closed addition skills to support subtraction fluency, and then multi-digit computation, 2 by 1, then 3 by 3 with regrouping. And so, and those are pretty consistent with the old mind materials. And so large and in charge, students will start after, and this is the thing I want everybody to realize here. This stuff will not take a long time to master because kids are, they're fluent with their prerequisite skills. And so kids that are in the large and in charge extension, whether it's sums to 6 or sums to 20, they're going to have their number writing, hopefully mastered, right? And then their sums to 6 to 10 will be mastered. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have an assessment where it's all the big numbers first, right? Then we're going to have an assessment where the big numbers are on the bottom, and then we're going to have an assessment where they're mixed. And so what you should find is when your big numbers on the top, they're going to be really fast, right? 8 plus 2 will be 8, 9, 10. But if it's 2 plus 8 on the next one, if they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, then obviously then it's going to take longer, right? And then when we have them mixed, they're going to see 8 plus 2 sometimes and 2 plus 8 sometimes. And so that performance should be in the middle, right? Then we're going to go ahead and give a probe on the mixed. This will be the daily practice. And they're going to start by be given a minute to circle the larger number as much as possible, as many as they can. And then they're going to be given 2 minutes to calculate all those problems. And they'll clearly find the number they circled and count on, regardless of whether that's in top position or bottom position on the add-ins. And then you're going to do that daily facts on fire for a minute. And then you can kind of look back at their number, like their biggest number first. That really should be their target fluency rate, if that makes sense to everybody. And so once kids can do that without circling the numbers, then we know they got it, right? And then if we go to sums to 10 and we do the same thing, and we see that whether the number's always on top or always on bottom, they're getting similar fluency rates, then that means they've generalized, that count up procedure. Okay, sibling say addition, again, they would look at this, 2 plus 4 is 6, cover it, right, 4 plus 2 is 6. And so they would do like 2 minutes of that, and then they would get, practice with retrieval. And again, and when I say that, these would be the target facts, the reciprocal facts, and we're going to have assessments to know whether that's generalizing. And again, for most of your kids it will. I'm sure there's going to be a couple that it doesn't, and this is why that's in there for this kid, but it also supports, again, that commutative property, our commutative principle that we teach. Okay, so I hope that makes sense to everybody. I'm working to try to get this done so we can do questions. This is what the algebraic extension looks like, as far as, they look at 6, 7, 13, 6 plus 7 is 13, 7 plus 6 is 13, further talks about those fact families, and then obviously here, what plus 8 is 16, 6 plus what is 10, and then this kind of helps. And then when you go to do subtraction, now you could say, well, 15 minus 6 is, and then you could say, well, what plus 6 is 15? And that has been shown to, be effective there. And then this obviously is that place value. So even if they're in sums to 10, right, they're never going to regroup on these. And so you teach that column addition. These are ones, tens, hundreds. And so obviously you can go, you'll teach them to do that from right to left, but then you'll show them you can do it left to right, just to show that like this 2 plus 5 is actually 200 plus 500. I know that sticks in some people's crawl, but again, and these are things that you probably will be teaching with concretes and arrays and different things in your core curriculum. And so again, this is supporting not only, like, this isn't just mindlessly memorizing facts. These are supposed to be shown. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing. This is how you think about it. Here's the quantity behind it. Okay, so, and again, this is a model lead retrieve. And so the model, the teacher works an example and provides the think aloud, which is vocabulary instruction, right? Then lead, the student leads the problem. They work the problem, they describe the problem, and then once they can evidence that, then they retrieve. And so when they're retrieving, they're just independently doing or engaging in the skill, which is where we want to see them to be. Okay. Whew. Cover, copy, compare for regrouping extensions, the same type of thing with the model lead retrieve. Obviously, the teacher does it, then the student does it. And then, what you'll see here is we have cues to support those regrouping efforts. We fade the cue here, but they will regroup every time. And then on these last two, sometimes they regroup, sometimes they don't. And so again, you're systematically removing and fading cues, but you're also, and then you're also having them do discriminations in these last two rows that they didn't have to do before. And so again, the curriculum design is there. Not all worksheets are created equal. And so, just trying to get through these things for you. And so extensions, sibling say and place value, and then missing number and extension. And these are going to be the extensions for everything from here on out: multiplication and division. So you're just going to be focused on those fact families, algebraic reasoning, and multi-digit. Okay. All right. Last thing. Kids need to be engaged. And so we use something called an interdependent group contingency to ensure motivation and engagement. And to do this, we do a weekly celebration. And to do this, we'll identify the target behavior you want to increase. So do you want them to be faster with their problems per minute, not skip problems, be accurate with counting up how many they completed? What's the level or rate of behavior that you want the student to exhibit? 100% beat their score by this many, that many, and then how are you going to score and record data? And so randomize behavior criterion. How often are you going to do it? Daily, every other day. We're going to recommend weekly. And then what rewards can you easily provide? And so we're going to end on the wonderful Miss Stam. And she basically is running this. And so I just said a lot with interdependent group contingencies. I have an article on it if you want to read it, but nothing is better than just watching somebody do it. It'll make sense.
Okay. Which yeah.
Right, because what we don't want are for kids to be like, oh, well, we always get rewarded on Wednesday, so I'm going to sandbag Tuesday so I'll do better Wednesday and then I can get the reward. On Friday, they don't know whether it's going to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and this is good. If they mess up a day, then they're not going to melt down. Just do better the next day. You never know, right? And so we want, and then also it's going to be based off of, we want you to beat your score, and so it's not, a contingency that only the high kids can get to. And so literally it's just based on everybody's own individual performance.
Which when you grew by, then what the prize is. So for the day, Steven, pick it. We do another two. Tuesday again? Every Tuesday. All right. This is which row we're looking at. I'm taking out row 2. We've got you guys enough. Taking out row 2. All right. Here we go.
And so the relational aspects of this again are great. She's having students come up, everybody's participating, they're thinking what day. And then again, you can't, as a teacher, you're not going to want to have to score everybody's on day on Tuesday, right? And so now she's picking a row, so she'll only have to, so she'll do row one and she'll only have to score about 4 probes. And then she will provide the reward either to the whole class or not the whole class. But this would ensure that she's not singling out any individual kids. It's saving teacher time. It's ensuring engaged performance throughout the week.
Two. You have to +2 on day, what day was it again? On Tuesday. Oh my goodness. Alright, now for the prize. If that row got their goal. Carson. I wonder if it's gonna be a whammy though. This temperature is really dirty. I'm hoping maybe you fix mine.
So this is where they're picking criteria. Is it going to beat your score by 2, by 4, by 6?
All right. Row 1. Tuesday. For 2 points. We will get to 2. Look at it!
Okay, so in summary, no theory today. I didn't have any time for that. I have linked my experts page through my university. Any podcast or past trainings I've done will be on there. And I talked with Anna Stockey, who you guys hopefully saw at this conference. And anyway, I talked ad nauseum about why fact fluency is important. We went over the core materials. Again, I hope this is clear to people. Question in the chat: can this be used as a standalone intervention program? Of course it can. And so again, if anybody has any questions, never hesitate to reach out to me. I know there was a parent in here. I'm really hopeful as well that this could be something that homeschool kids and parents can latch on to and use as well. And so thank you. I'll open it up for any questions or comments. And I'll stay late. I'm not out at 2:15, so if people want to stick behind and ask questions, I'm fine with that.
Did you answer Dr. Ponce about is there a pre-test or just a post-test?
There's just a post test. If you're using it, so if you're using it as an interventionist, right, you're obviously going to want a pre-test. And you would just you'd go through that sequence. If in the front of every single packet, whether it's sums to 6, sums to 10, there is an assessment there. And obviously, if you assess a kid, so if you're going to do it class-wide, because it's done over the smartboard, everybody has to get the same thing. But if you're doing tiered intervention and you have kids on 1-to-1 tablets, you could go ahead and place one kid in sums to 6, one kid in sums to 18. They'll have headphones on, they'll have their packet, and they'll work on that. In that case, they'll obviously, you'll assess and place them in the appropriate skill.
Did you answer, there was a question about, is Facts on Fire 2.0 still based upon this routine twice per day?
Yeah, this is once per day in the core, right? So if this is a supplemental 1.5 intervention, it's done once per day. But let's say you're working on sums to 6 with kindergarten kids and you see that a child's not responding. You're going to see that within a week or two. And so if you want to go ahead and there's 2 kids or 6 kids or even just 1 kid that's not responding, then you could do that, for 2 times with that student. And actually, if you want to do it 2 times per day, it would shrink the 6-week lesson down to 4, and it would shrink the 9 down to 6. And so there's that option. So if you want to do it 2 times a day, you can. That's what I would do. But I think a lot of teachers they're so busy. They're just like, once a day is all I can handle. But you could do it either way. And that's the tiered aspect of it. I'm not going to say do something different. It's just really going to be about doing things more. And so it's about increasing dose, because the engagement reinforcement piece is built in there.
Someone is asking if you plan on adding these example videos on the website as well.
Yes. Yeah, and so I'll have those on the website, and I actually got a grant to do this over the next 3 years in a school, and so I'm hopeful. One of the things I'd really like to do is make an interactive, after a few years, is actually have an interactive manual that would be broke out into all these chunks. I know how with teachers, it's so hard to hear somebody describe what this looks like. Watching expert teachers like Laura do this is so helpful, and so I'm with you guys 100%. I'm working to get all this stuff done.